Hello and welcome to the Soul Purpose Wealth Conversation. My name is Sabine Messner and I am a new paradigm visionary, medicine woman, and known as the Wizard of Soul Purpose Branding. And today I would like to introduce you to one of the co-facilitators of our inaugural Soul Purpose Wealth Retreat, which is held in Costa Rica, April 4th through the April 11th. And you can already see the big smile that I have on my face because all the people that have already registered, and including ourselves, the co-facilitators, we can hardly wait to be there and to enter this extraordinary ceremonial space. And what I really want to sort of like impart on you with this vision here of the Soul Purpose Wealth Retreat, a journey into prosperity consciousness, is this picture of you and your beloved stepping into quite literally, a force field, a matrix, an energy space, like a dome space, that you can step into and really hook into and connect into a very tangible and very prosperous new consciousness. It's all around us and it's all inside of us. And yet we have decades, as a matter of fact, not just decades, centuries, eons, lifetimes of kinks in the pipes and in the communication streams that don't ordinarily let us access this extraordinary prosperity consciousness. And the master New Earth ceremonialist who is co-creating and holding this matrix, this energy vortex, is here with me on the Google Hangout today. And I'm a little surprised that we haven't really crashed yet because this woman, Carol Rydell, is absolutely primed to hold really, really space for big spaces. So yes, let me say this again. She is a space holder. She is a person that has really unleashed and unhooked herself from old ways of doing things, and she'll talk to you more about what that is, old ways of doing things such as money and business and spirituality, and really make the leap in consciousness to a kind of like a new operating principle, if you so will. And she is holding the space of this in-betweenness, this grand, magnificent, mysterious void. So I want to welcome Carol Rydell and introduce Carol Rydell to you on this call in the way that she has never been introduced before. Welcome, Carol. You are one of my all-time best friends. You are my mentor, and I also have the great privilege to, be also on this journey to Soul Purpose Wealth together with you. Welcome, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Sabina. It is so wonderful to be here with you today. It's such a blessing. And I just want to say that I appreciate, and part of this new way, part of the new energy, is not only are you a very good friend of mine, and there's times in which I mentor you, and there's ways, many ways in which you mentor me. And that is the dance. This is the dance of the energies that we're stepping into. And so I really want to just take this moment, this pause, and just honor that in our relationship.
I know, this is like the coolest thing, right? That we dance this dance, and oftentimes really beautifully in one single conversation where, we may be calling each other up as besties, as girlfriends, right? And then all of a sudden it can shift into this like beautiful student and teacher relationship that is so mutually respectful and honorable. And like I said, I have thanked you so many times, and I thank you again today for being in my life in all those ways. And that we are all students and teachers for each other is actually also one of the aspects that we want to bring into balance within the soul purpose wealth conversation, and specifically also at the retreat. We really, it's time that we really step down from this like hierarchical stage presentation relationship that we so many times have with our mentors, that we put them up on a pedestal ourselves, and then, you know, or they need to be on a stage in order to sort of serve us. You know, we are much more excited. Carol, you and I were, and so many of the people that are joining us and joining this conversation, we're so much more excited to having this be a circle again. And you know the wisdom of the circle, don't you?
Absolutely. So that's what I call the ancient future wisdom. And we're going to be bringing just the medicine of the past, the wisdom of the ancients and of the feminine into the future, into the now, into the future, and really being together in that way, in that circle, in that non-hierarchical energy where all voices are valued. All voices are just really honored and a part of the interweaving that has to happen today. You know, I had one of my dear, dear mentors for many years, my shamanic teacher, Peruvian adept, Don Oscar Miro Quesada, always said, the first will come last and the last will come first. Okay? So what that means to me, it's like a time where we think we're the front runners and then someone surpasses us and we can learn from them. Again, the student teacher, the mentor, we're always exchanging that place where we must be open to who our teacher is and the new energetic and the new expression and the gift that wants to move through each person into the circle that becomes a piece that we need in the moment.
Oh my gosh, can you already feel the medicine in this, the relief of that reminder that what comes first will be last and vice versa, which really is such a sort of a soothing ointment, right, to the wounds of the self-inflicted failures, you know, all the lessons, all the in quote-unquote mistakes and the detours that we're making, none of them are in vain and none of them are mistakes. And yet we can sometimes be so hard with ourselves, like, why did I not see this coming, and, you know, and all of that stuff, and really knowing that ultimately, whether those are positive experiences or negative experience in the duality of the old paradigm, really doesn't matter. Ultimately, they are all leading us back home to who we are and to bring that expression out, right?
Absolutely, and that's where, you know, you get into value, and there's a whole conversation around value that we have.
And Carol, if I may just intersect a little bit of that official, you know, introduction before we get deeper into the. I wanted to just really get people, tease people into the experience with you, so that when I am now introducing you in the fullness of the wealth that you bring to the table, it is even more meaningful to the listeners. So I want to just read to you a short bio that really describes Carol Rydell in all of her masteries, really, that she is bringing together here for us. So Carol Rydell is on a mission to help women reclaim their inner and outer wealth so that they can heal their lives and ultimately the world. Using laser-focused wit and the compassionate humor that only an old soul embodies, Carol is the secret weapon behind the success of many luminaries and thought leaders in the coaching industry. Having led priestess circles for decades and initiated thousands of women into higher, empowered expressions of themselves, Carol Rydell is a pioneer in raising both the individual and the collective consciousness of how we do money, business, and spirituality. She's a master facilitator in the Andean shamanism with the passion of bringing forth the feminine wisdom and prosperity energies of the North, meaning that she's a North gatekeeper, a wisdom keeper, working with the mystery realms, for sure. Having run her own successful CPA firm, which, by the way, Carol sold to the brother-in-law of Sonia Choquette. You know, trust your wives. That's Sonia Choquette. Yes, high consciousness CPA firm. Carol knows how to track and direct not only the flow of money, but the flow of universal energy. And in fact, she doesn't really distinguish too much between those and can really, really hold, again, the space for you to see that also come together in your life and in your business, and thus create very effortless prosperity in your world. She's a down-to-earth priestess and a role model to many on how to live your dream, manifest your wealth, and own your personal power and pleasure.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you. You know, I was going to say something about the value piece. And in my many, many years of working with people around money, around personal growth, it really comes back to that place of you must value yourself. You must value who you are at a core level. You must value the gifts that you offer. You must value the way that you show up for yourself, for your beloveds, and in your business and in your communities. It just comes back to that whole value piece. And one of the new ways that I really see in this new consciousness, I'll say that, new consciousness, I'll say maybe it's old consciousness, and maybe we're just remembering, okay? In this new consciousness, it's really about all of those pieces of ourself. Can we love those? All the little things that we think we're not good at, that we, like for women who look in the mirror and they can criticize their body, they can criticize how they look that day. Can they love that too? Can they love the mistakes? Can they love the relationships that seem have created a tremendous amount of disharmony in their lives? I mean, each of those little steps along the way, can you love that too? And when we talk about this new energy that is so based in love, can we love that? And when we love that, that is that place where we're really full. That love emits, it's a fullness, it's a value at an entirely different level that we hold and step into and step forward wherever we go.
This is so exciting that we're talking about this valuing, right? Value, which is so deeply connected to self-worth, which then, of course, you know, translates to your bottom line worth as well, right? It's all one. And you're not beginning this sort of discovery with like, okay, let's optimize this over here, let's tweak this over there. You're really starting with the core of this whole, you know, question is like, do you really love yourself? Do you love what you do unconditionally? Do you love your life? Do you love the relationship? And how can we discover love even when we are thinking, oh, I could never possibly accept that, or I could never possibly, you know, come to peace with that? That's really where your work really begins in that sort of like being so So being not just okay with it, but embracing all of that and really, again, holding space for love to re-emerge if it has disappeared, or for love to sort of be validated, so that that love can then also very naturally guide us to a value system that we actually want to experience. I want to dial in deeper with you into those two areas. Talk a little bit more about self-love and self-worth. That's a huge, huge topic. And then from there, I also want to transition into money values. We have as a society so many blueprints of how we need to express our value, our self-worth, and our money. And I think we're discovering that we need to have some new ideas there and some new role models. So first, let's zoom in into the self-worth and self-love conversation.
Well, many of us were not, myself included, were not raised with the best influences when it came to self-love. There were and it had more to do not so much with who our parents were, but maybe how they communicated whatever it was that they were trying to communicate to us. And so oftentimes for myself it came across as criticism, and I took it deeply as criticism. And what I did personally was I took it in very deeply and embodied it as shame. And it was shameful for me to, there must be something wrong with me. You know, I can't really show that part. I hope no one finds out, because I'm certainly not okay. And so if I just keep up the act, right, then hopefully no one will find out. Or if I seem good enough, no one will find out. And it got to the place where I knew that it was like living with this split identity. And I could not continue to, I knew that I was good. I knew that I could be successful. I knew these things. So there was a place where at one point it was like, what's wrong with me? Maybe nothing's wrong with me. Maybe nothing. And just pausing. And what if, and then really asking the question, and I encourage everyone who's listening to do this, what if, asking themselves, what if there was nothing wrong with you? What if you weren't lacking anything? What if you were excellent at whatever you decided you wanted to do? What if you had enough energy and juice? What if you had enough energy and money? What is it? Okay? What is it? And I think that that's such an important piece. And until we really can that within ourselves, to truly love ourselves, to be able to embrace ourselves, no one can fill that vessel for you. And you take that fullness wherever you go. You know, biblically, they talked about, it was Miriam's well. And Miriam was the leader of women. And they talked about when the Jews went to the desert, and she was able to provide the water. You know, people were able to come and be nourished at her well. Well, that really talks about internally that we have to be able to develop our own well. I'll call it your well of wealth. That place where you can go connect with Source. That place where you can go be nourished. That place where you know all is perfect. That place where you know no matter what expression you choose to be out in the world, nothing changes that. No one can take that from you. Okay? You are whole and holy unto yourself.
Well, I can definitely testify here that you really live that. You live that wholeness, and you are really always coming from that well of wealth within yourself. You know yourself so deeply, and you have done the work on the emotional and the energetic levels as well to really love and accept yourself. So many of us do personal growth work, you know, we're personal growth junkies, and we are confusing mindset and positive, you know, positive attitudes with self-love. That's completely different. Talk a little bit about, you know, some of the misunderstandings and what we could actually be healing at the Soul Purpose Wealth retreat, that are truly lifetime lessons, lifetime obstacles for people around self-value, self-acceptance, self-worth, to really be, you know, anchored into this well of inner wisdom and knowledge, and having healthy boundaries without needing to sort of like push people away. Talk a little bit more about that, because that's really your expertise.
Well, the thing that pops up for me immediately as you're talking, and I don't know that's totally related to your question, but what pops up that wants to be shared is the piece around learning to, in relationship to the retreat itself, or anywhere in someone's life, we think a lot. And we think that if we learn one more thing, then certainly that will solve the problem. Okay? And what's important is to really be able to shift the situation, the belief systems, the patterns, the emotions energetically. And that's what we're going to be doing, is really working with doing this work on an energetic, not necessarily thinking level, because we want to be able, we don't have to understand any of it really. Okay?
Why is it so much more powerful and effective and also permanent if you are shifting your perception of yourself and thus the world, right? Because hello, this is the window out into the world. Why is it so much, in quote unquote, better, in my opinion, if we're doing this work on an energetic level than if we're doing mindset work or emotional healing work or those types of other personal growth processes that are certainly very, very helpful and useful as well? In your opinion, why is the work on the energetic plane so powerful and mighty?
Well, I can simplify that answer is it's about the embodiment. And we have to, you know, part of our work is getting it all the way through our body. Through, again, we don't have to understand. It's fun to understand. I'm queen of understanding. I would love to have to sit and have all these conversations and understanding and philosophies and all of that. I love that. Ask my beloved. And yet, nothing changes until the energetic changes, and it is all the way through the body. And this is part of what, especially this whole feminine, well, I just want to step back a little bit. This is all about feminine wisdom. And we're at a new place where we used to hear a lot about masculine initiations. And that was the way where you would go to the mountaintop and you wouldn't eat for days on end, and you finally try to tax the body enough to leave and connect with spirit and get the vision and then be able to bring that back. Masculine initiation. Now we move towards feminine initiation. And the feminine initiation is to be able to connect the source, connect with source, and allow it all the way through. At the same time, connecting with Mother Earth and allowing it up and through her. As she is that vessel between heaven and earth, and ends up meeting in our bodies. Okay? So this time of the feminine returning really, I want to say, is impressing upon, that's not the exact word I'm looking for, but it's really calling us into embodiment. Okay? And that's the feminine way, where we're all being the vessels between heaven and earth, that sacred priest, that sacred priestess that has the arms and the legs and the voice here on earth to carry forth what the gifts that are given through them through source, and being that sacred vessel.
Wow, I felt that in my body. Talking about embodiment. So really to really emphasize on what you just said, Carol, when we're talking about making those changes on the energetic plane and the energy field, we're really, most people think of this as woo-woo, and to people who've really been educated in the real energy medicine work, like we both have. We have the Andean shamanistic, training background in common, though I've only, in comparison to you, dipped my toe into it. You have been doing it for decades, and really also been a teacher's teacher and a trainer there, not to mention also a space holder in the North, which is why I put you in charge of the ceremonies. But when people hear, yeah, we're going to be working on the energy, it's not woo-woo, guys. There is nothing more practical and tangible and results-oriented than this work, because it takes this whole sort of monkey mind, the smallness thinking, right? And the ego is our best friend in this whole undertaking. I am all for integrating the ego and bringing the ego in alignment with the supreme calling that we're living, out, that we're of service to and instead of service of. But in the beginning, we really need to bypass that filter, because it's got a very distorted and very limited perspective, and really get into the energetics of our being, of our multidimensional being. And when we're working with the energetics, we're actually changing things on a cellular level, which changes the emotions, which changes our physicality. It changes our bodies, quite literally. It changes the future, like you said in the beginning. It changes the past. It takes shame and sorrow and grief and sadness and depression and anger and rage and all of those feelings and heals them. Not to say that you won't feel them again. It's like a violin. We want to play high notes, we want to play low notes, but we don't want to hold on to old trauma and old stories. So the working in the energetics is basically giving you an update, a total new operating platform, right? It takes you out of the dark ages into sort of like higher consciousness, everyday living. But I really want to underline, it is so practical. It is so related to your happiness, to your wealth, to your health, to your bottom line. I mean, you can tie it into all of those things. It's a very practical approach to get it done effortlessly and quickly, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. One of the thoughts that came across as you were talking was something as simple as, like, when we talk about dollar bills, I'm talking about the consciousness and the energy. Okay? When we talk about dollar bills and when we receive money from someone, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll have groups do money cleansing, money laundering rituals, and maybe we'll do one at the retreat, so that would be kind of fun. But because what happens is, many people, we don't know where that money's been before. We don't know who has struggled with it. We don't know the belief systems of the people who have held it. We don't know, maybe it's been given freely, maybe people have had to just toil and work very, very hard for it. Maybe it was their last dollar. Maybe they were afraid to let it go. Maybe they're, whatever this situation was. And when we receive that, we actually receive that money that everyone who's come before us, and all that money is a piece of paper, right? But we receive all of that energy from where it has traveled. And oftentimes then we go to put it in our own wallets. And that also affects whatever we have in there. So we take on, when we look at doing lineage work, right? And when we're clearing lineage work, it's time often to, even with simple dollar bills, it can be hundreds for that matter, there's some lineage work that we have to do around the energy of that which we bring in our space, no different than when you're choosing to drink a green drink. It's because you're wanting a certain energy or vibration or clarity within your space, within your system, within your body, within your life. And so energy affects us in so many ways. So we know when we can shift the energy, that we can shift many, 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 many things, and it affects us, from the inside out. And our lives reflect those shifts.
This is a perfect lead-in into this other, question that I want to really have is take a closer look at, and that has to do with okay, so we're doing the energy healing work, right, on our self-love and self-worth issues, really bypassing this whole thing and really feeling the love, opening up the gateways in our being on multiple levels, on a cellular level, on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a mental level, right? Cleansing, healing, rejuvenating, purifying, and then also really attuning to the new prosperity consciousness so that you can create more alignment, more congruency, and have more wealth in your life from the inside out. So when we're doing all this inner work, then this next interesting question arises, and I have really been paying very close attention to this question that I'm about to bring to you, Carol, in terms of our value system. So the example that I want to use here for everybody to tune into this conversation here is, like many of you, we've been in masterminds, we've been in the expert industry, we've been learning a lot about up-leveling and raising your wealth, wealth, defaults point or wealth mindset, and there's hardly a week, or sometimes not even a day, where I'm not going on Facebook or I have an email coming into my inbox. In other words, the same idea with the dollar bills, where there's this frequency coming into my life, into my body, into my awareness around how wealth should be lived. And I want to use the example of a first-class airline ticket.
Okay.
I have heard now so many times that if you really want to be sort of a successful, entrepreneur with a great wealth consciousness, you just should always fly first class. Or you should always be picked up by a limo, or you should always just do X, Y, and Z, and not clean, and have helpers and all of that stuff. So we have really been very, very much hearing examples like that, and I feel, when I'm really, really honest with myself, not in alignment with those value principles many, many times. This is not to say that I wouldn't want to fly first class on an international flight, but quite honestly, oftentimes I really really would prefer to rather use that investment and funnel it back into my business or do something that brings me love and joy. So what I have discovered is that we don't have enough role models of the new wealth consciousness in the embodied entrepreneurial form. We have basically spirit-driven mentors and coaches that too many of them are still too broke to really get out there and make a difference. And then we have the people that really can thrive in that sort of up-leveling, the new luxury, the new feminine and luxe mindset, and Paris, here we come. And, you know, I have traveled the world, and I don't really want to travel in that way. When I travel the world, I look for the Pachamama people. I want to get off the grid. I want to run naked. You know, I have a whole other idea of what wealth and luxury is to me. I don't want to be sitting in 5-star hotels, quite frankly. But it was a very, very confusing journey for me because I had to discover the hard way, you know, by learning, like when I sat in some of those resort luxury environments, that's actually really not what brings me, what turns on my soul purpose wealth. So what are the, you know, purposes of myself in going to the soul purpose wealth retreat and getting a new energy system for myself is that I really want to define and tune into my own value system so that when I spend money, that I really, really can create more and more and more soul purpose wealth experiences for myself versus buying into somebody else's wealth dream that turns out not to be mine.
Well spoken. I think that at the core of everything, it's we have to know ourselves. And we have to know, what do we value? You know, what do I value? What do you value? And honor what someone else's value. And they're not necessarily going to be the same. And that doesn't diminish in any way, shape, or form someone else sharing publicly what they too value. But what's important to know is that someone else's way, when you know yourself, someone else's way is not necessarily your way. But it all comes back to you really knowing what's important to you, what you love, what you don't love, what's important, how you want to spend your money, how you don't want to spend your money, how you want to spend your time, how you don't want to spend your time. Do you love 5-star resorts? Do you like to camp instead? Or do you love both? Okay? Or do you love flying first class? Do you not want to fly first class? You know, sometimes we all need that holy crap moment, you know, where you stretch yourself in a way so far, or you paid for a coach that is so far beyond your reach to believe that you can live into that and do it. That's great. And on the other hand, it's like you were saying, that's not your value system. Right? That you want to be able to
be defined by that. It's not that I wouldn't enjoy it. I definitely like both for different reasons. I just have noticed that there is a lot of sort of preset sort of associations that come with like, okay, so now we're at that level. So now we have to express wealth this way. Now we're at this level. Now we have to express wealth that way. It's the same sort of like blueprinting that has gotten us into the scarcity thinking, you know, in the first place. So now we're basically in this place on a collective level where we're really looking around for new role models, and there's not enough of that out there, in my opinion, to really show that diversity, to show the uniqueness. Because why? Because exactly why you said, we haven't taken the time out to heal those wounds and find out who we really truly are. It is a sacred obligation that we have to know ourselves. Know thyself. And so at the Soul Purpose Wealth Retreat, can you feel the invitation? You can actually really take 7 days and 7 nights out, participate in ceremonies that are building incrementally on each other, that are really sort of creating a crescendo and an opening of all of those aspects within yourself, so that while you're sleeping, while you're in meditation, or while you're maybe lounging by the pool or swimming in the ocean and playing with the dolphins, that you get to heal subtly in the background. Maybe you will have big ahas and awakenings, extraordinary moments, miracles could happen there for you. And while all of that is going on, you will be shown who you are and also what your path, could look like, that would let you experience more soul purpose wealth in your life. So, Carol, talk to us a little bit about the types of ceremonies that you will be conducting together with your beloved Gary Langston. And I interviewed him the week before. There's a wonderful Google Hangout interview with Gary Langston available here on our Soul Purpose Wealth channel as well. Tune into a little bit into like how do we create people, let people be sort of unhooked out of those old mindsets and really be anchored in this new wealth embodiment?
Well, the primary way is that we're going to go into what I call an initiatory field. So that just by stepping in, and I'm sure that we'll create something magical for that experience, but for stepping in, they're literally like leaving. Part of initiation is leaving what has been behind, really honoring that, blessing it, appreciating it, and being willing to step into a field, a new field. And that new field energetically will be created, okay, as a part of this retreat. And they will be stepping across what I call the portal of initiation. Okay. That will, initiations are those places that with intention we will create the field that up levels through everyone's intention, their individual and their collective intention for even being there.
So the ceremonies will really guide you on this awakening journey, and we also have in the afternoons we have free space, open time. People can dive deeper into healings. We do have that availability as well. And so, in other words, ceremonies are not necessarily over when we're leaving the space, because they're still working in the in-between spaces, right? Through dream time and so on and so forth. So that's really an opportunity also for you to come with your beloved, your partner, your husband, your wife, to really get out of this place where you're trying to convey a vision perhaps to your partner and it falls on deaf ears, or maybe you're not seeing eye to eye on certain things, and there isn't really any way that this could be resolved through language, like verbal language, or more talking, or more doing. It just sometimes, is just a question of like personal evolution, and like Carol said, that energetic shift. And so this is an opportunity also for couples to really discover the union and the unification of their soulmate arrangement along the lines of them living their purpose, their soul purpose wealth together. I am personally convinced that many marriages that have ended up in separation recently were very, very much due to the spiritual awakening on a collective level, primarily of the women that just felt like they didn't want it to just sort of like fit into the old, the big, the small old box anymore, right? And there are only so many soulmates that go around, over the course of a lifetime. And what often, seems to happen is that these beautiful, gorgeous, divine women have a really tough time, oftentimes, finding another partner in their lives. And I have found that the men, if they would have been given a proper opportunity to evolve, to shift their consciousness too, are often so happy to do so too. It's just they're so plugged into the doing and being a good provider that they're caught off guard. They didn't see it coming, and they, in that place in that mindset, don't know what else to do other than to just basically say, okay, And so this is an opportunity for couples, emerging couples, or people that have been together already for many, many years, to get a new dream, to get a new vision, and to fall in love again together, so that everybody has their own unique way of going about it, but there's also a unification if it is meant for the highest good. And if it is not meant for the highest good, then there will be so much love in the field through the ceremonies that even if a separation or something like that would have to sort of, be necessary, that you could come from a healed place, and that would change everything. So it's a really, really beautiful invitation also to bring your beloved. And Carol, can you comment on that? Because you're coming with your beloved, your life partner.
I am. So I'm very fortunate in that way, and you have yours. And yet, what I really want to speak into, I mean, you spoke so beautifully of the opportunity for couples in that way, whether they're in really strong places or whether there's some wobbles in their relationships at the moment, really allowing them the opportunity to let go and to deepen. What I want to mention is what I see as even more important is that each person who comes, whether partnered or not, has an opportunity to truly deepen with their inner beloved. Mm. And it is only when we truly have partnered with our inner beloved that expresses in a most exquisite way outside of us.
Wow. Again, I'm so glad this was said. I'm so glad this was said. So, Carol, in closing, who would you like to call in to come with us to the Soul Purpose Wealth Retreat at the renowned Blue Spirit Resort in Costa Rica, April 4th through the April 11th? Who is called to play with us? Who is called to step into this force field of the new prosperity so that we can return back into our lives, into our world in a healed way with our beloved in that union? Who are we calling in?
I have a sense that we're calling in people who, even though they may not understand it, they may understand it and say absolutely yes and jump right on board. And then there's going to be those who I have a very strong feeling who their hearts are calling, that they know that there's something here, even though they don't understand it intellectually. They know there's a new way. They know there's a way that is about, there's going to be such richness and such collaboration and being and letting go. We're going to have the active side, and we're going to have the letting go side, and the weaving of, we're going to have pleasure and joy along with all of this. And so for those people who really, really want to take more of that into the richness of their self, into their selves, and ultimately up-level everything in being who they are, so that as they move back in an integrated way into their lives, that they're ready to be that as they continue in their becoming.
Beautiful. So the journey into the prosperity consciousness is really a healing journey to heal yourself from the inside out, to heal the vision of your future, to heal your life, your relationship, primarily the one with yourself, right? With your inner beloved. To heal also the any bottom line issues, any money stories, right? It's kind of like a real sort of one size fits all retreat. And what's so special about it is that oftentimes you go to spiritual expansion and awareness retreats, and then you return back to doing business the old way, right? The old way. And so we're doing a lot of this sort of like back and forth, right? And this is integrated. We will be doing business dreaming, business visioneering in these sacred environments, where we're also looking at self-value, self-love, old stories. Where are we not seeing the bigger picture in our business? Where we're not seeing the bigger picture with our beloved, in our relationship? It's really, nothing is separate. And also, remember, we were talking about the circle. The Soul Purpose Wealth mentors have all, experienced Soul Purpose Wealth, and so they're sharing their experiences and their journeys and their teachings. But they're doing that on the same level playing field, because we recognize that everyone who's coming is a master. They just need to remember it. Everyone who's coming is a master. And we invite you to come and join us at the inaugural Soul Purpose Wealth Retreat in Costa Rica. And remember that your Soul Purpose Wealth is a sacred birthright. And it's about high time that we accept it. So in closing, Carol, do you have any other blessings or words of wisdoms from the North for the circle, for all the people that will be, even in the future, even beyond, the retreat, when the retreat has already ended, if they are hearing this conversation, what would you like them to know?
Well, the one thing that I wanted to share with regards to the Soul Purpose mentors that are coming, that they were very, very carefully selected in their own successes, hearts, and the embodiment, so that for everyone who comes, there's a field that we call that entrainment, so that they are already living that. And by stepping into the circle, by stepping into the field, that you get to be held and uplifted into that field that already exists as a possibility, as a reality. So that was an important piece. Blessing. May all of the people on this call, may all of the people whose lives will be touched by the work that we do in this moment, during the retreat, in our continual prayers, may they all receive the benefit of our work, our play, our letting go, our embodying, our laughter, our entrainment, our elevation, our consciousness. May they all be touched by this, and the ripples go throughout the world, serving all peoples of the earth and all of its beings. May they all be uplifted. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Soul Purpose Wealth conversation. Please subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. And I hope to see you at the Soul Purpose Wealth Retreat in Costa Rica, April 2015. For more details, go to soulpurposewealth.com. That is soulpurposewealth.com. Thanks so much, Carol.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sabina. What an honor.
And bye-bye, everyone.